Welcome. In this next installment, we are going to add in the fireball for the boss to shoot at the player. So the first thing that we need to do, of course, is add a new tab. Now the fireball is a variant of the projectile. We're also going to use an animated version, so the first thing we can do is just copy all of the code from the projectile, and we'll paste that into the fireball, because a lot of its code is going to be very, very similar. So right now it's exactly the same code as that, but we need to go grab some Sprite stuff because we are going to be animating it, but our fire method is going to be very much the same. We just have to, instead of using the mouse, we're going to use the player's position that we're targeting on it. Otherwise, our fire method looks, well, pretty much about the same. So what we're really just changing is our update and display with Sprite information. So I can just go into the player here and we'll just go grab some Sprite stuff. Fireball doesn't need health, we just need our animation information, so I'll copy that, go into the fireball, paste, go back into the player, and now we can go grab this information, copy that, back to fireball, paste, and let's see. All right. So our offset X and Y aren't matching because those are integers and our position is floating there on it. So we can just go and modify here and be integer with that because it's sprite based, so we can draw it based on single pixels, so that will be fine. The size of it, if I go into my fireball graphic and take a look at what is there, we will see that it is 32 pixels tall, so each one of these is 32 by 32, so we can now adjust this to be 32s. Now if you make your boss projectile differently sized, so you make it 16, you make it 48, you make it 96, you make it 23, put in the values for yours. I just like to keep things mostly consistent on this. I'm going to slow the fireball down because otherwise it goes really, really fast, so we'll slow down its speed while it flies across the screen. And when I look at the total number of frames on my fireball, it is not 4, but it is indeed 6. So now we've modified that information and have our primary constructor done. So we've brought in the sprite stuff. So now we just need to bring in the sprite animation part from update, so let's go find that. Update sprite art. So I'm going to go into the player and go and find my sprite update, highlight that, copy that. Hopefully what's running through your brain is, wow, we're kind of doing a lot of the same things in a bunch of our different classes. And that's the truth. And what would be useful is down the road that we would extend our programming knowledge and realize that one of the programming patterns is we can have what are in effect parent and child classes. So we would have a parent class. It would be maybe just a sprite class for all sprites that animate, that show up on screen. So they have a default update and display, they have default properties that then can be inherited by the child, and then they would just have their specific unique things, and if we need to tweak what's in those defaults, then we can override that. So there's ways to do that within coding, but right now we are being duplicative, so we are repeating code, and it's not the best way of working, but it is going to be acceptable for what we need to do right now. So we now have our updating for our sprite art. We need to update for the display, so we can go back into player. We can go and copy here, back into the fireball under display, paste. We don't need these lines of code because we're not going to be drawing that, so we might as well just delete that. And once we've done that, we know that it's not going to be player art, but will be, mine is a fireball. Now if you do something else, you can do something else. Now if I go back and look here, we did make the variable for that inside our main code. Go down here, we did preload it, so then that's good. So we've added that. Now we will notice that our fire here is giving us a little bit of grief, and that would be tied to the fact that the values that are being passed in on this are the projectile used floats, but our fireball is interested in using integers because all of the values that we're passing in are integers, so we switch those. So then that brings those in, and now we just have cosine of our angle value is giving us a value that is not an integer but a float. So we can even just round that. So we'll just choose round, so it rounds up or rounds down. Oh, don't need that extra star symbol right there. And speed is still, if we look on here, so angle is that, speed is currently a float as well. So our angle does have to be small. I mean, if we, because it's giving us in radians, it's not doing it in degrees, so we don't have 360 degrees. So because of that, we can't say we want our angle to be an integer. So we can just set our float to speed, or our speed to an integer. So what I will do is just change this to an integer, and that, and float angle. So now all the red is gone, it's not grumpy anymore. So we have our fireball class pretty much done. What we're going to need to do next is integrate it so that the boss will be firing it. So we're going to need to have an additional timer object that we can work with. But first, what I want to do is just go, and we made the fireball art. I'm just going to make a temporary object here. So I'll just make it FB. FB equals new fireball. Now, if we look at the fireball, fireball does have an active on it. It defaults, it starts out at false. But that's not going to affect us being able to show it just yet. I just want to make sure that the fireball is working. So FB dot display. And oh, where does the fireball even start out? X starts out at 0. Okay, so it should just show up. Oh, forgot a semicolon. Okay, let's try again. So we should see there is the fireball. It's not updating because we didn't put an update. So if we go fb.update, so we can watch it animate. Now we can see the fireball is animating in the top left corner. So we know the fireball works. We know the fireball can animate. So we've proven that. So that's good. So the next thing we want to do is we want to be able to add the fireball to our project, but control its display and animation.